Welcome to a more just and merciful world. I'm Kathy Humphrey, president of Carlow University. On this podcast, we talk to leaders, teachers, artists, and scientists from around the globe to explore how to bring more justice and mercy in our own world. I am so grateful today because I am thrilled, not that I'm not thrilled with all our guests, but I am really thrilled to have just an incredible leader, an incredible preacher, and a friend, and that is with Bishop Zubik. Bishop Zubik, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast today.
Well, Madam President, dear Kathy, it's an honor to be with you, as it's always a pleasure to be in your company for sure.
Yes, and I learned that this is your first podcast, so I'm feeling really special right now, I must tell you.
Well, and I feel special too, and I don't feel nervous because I'm with you.
That's
Thanks.
right. You are in good hands. You're in good hands. So today, Bishop, we're going to talk about this theme of creating a more just and merciful world. That's what we ultimately want our students to go out and do, to be committed to taking their education and to creating a better world with it. Oftentimes, I say to our students, Bishop, I say, to whom much is given, much is required. I say it as often as I can because I want the students to understand that this education that they are receiving is not just simply for them. It is to answer the call that's been placed on their individual lives. The call that's on your life, Bishop. How did you decide to answer that call?
Well, really, it was God's decision to place the call. As I share with so many people, my dream when I was growing up as a little kid, and even when I came into high school, was to be a lawyer. Wanted to be a dad, wanted to be a father, and I was operating on that, and all of a sudden, through my best friend, God said, "Hey, pal, no, I want you for something else." And he began to open my eyes to the possibility of becoming a priest. And I got to tell you, I fought him. I fought him for a couple of years. Okay. And finally said, I'm not going to win this battle. I'm going to go with what the Lord wants. And after some prayer and really examining my heart, I said yes to becoming a priest almost 50 years ago.
Wow.
And as I look back on it now, thank God I didn't become a lawyer. No disrespect to the lawyers out there, but thank God that I didn't become a lawyer.
Yeah. So that's interesting because the notion that you fought him. And I think that most people, or a lot of people, maybe not most people, have that tug of war. And it's normal. And I don't think when you're in the midst of that tug of war, that you that you really believe that most people are enduring this notion of whether they're going to answer the call that's been placed on their lives. I know a lot of our students do this too. If you can think back to that time when you were when you were in the fight to answer this call, what was going on and how did you finally subside to, this is what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, the battle really comes down to what is it that I want to do, what's going to serve me, what's going to serve my desires, what's going to serve my dreams, versus what in fact is going to satisfy the desires of God. You know, I've always been a man of faith. I'm grateful for my mom and dad, and my faith is very simple. Very trusting in what God wants. That doesn't mean that we don't fight, and that's exactly what happened there. And I think it was a matter of opening my eyes to see, wait a minute, life, if I'm going to be serious about Jesus, means not doing what I want to do and what satisfies me and what fulfills my dreams. But what is it that the Lord wants of me? And, you know, once I said yes to becoming a priest, once again, I made the same mistake. You know, I made the mistake by saying, yep, I'm going to become a priest because all I ever want to do is to be a priest in a parish. And less than 2 years after I was ordained, God said, pal, that's not the direction I'm going here. And he asked me to move in at that particular point of my ministry to secondary education, to get another degree, to be able to work with young people. It was an area that I absolutely did not want to get into, didn't feel comfortable working with young people. And the Lord said, yes, you can. And he proved it to me. And over the course of all of these years, God has asked me to do one thing after another that's not been a part of what I dreamt, but a part of his dream. And at each step along the way and each of the challenges that he provided, I learned something about myself coming from the one who created me, and said, don't be in a position where you downplay what your possibilities might be. I'll give you the grace to do it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because the very thing we fight often is the very thing that really is going to bring us the joy and the peace that most people are always hunting down, right? So I know that from our prior conversations that you have lived an incredible life, and a life looks like full of joy. And do you believe that that has something to do with, not that answering the call is always easy, because I'm a living witness that it's not always easy, right? But that joy and peace follows answering that call. And then when I have that joy and peace, I'm able to give that out to others to create a better world.
And I think what you say is exactly true. And I think the harder that we have to work at something, the more do we appreciate it, and the more that it's really embraced by our hearts. And after all, isn't that where it all has to be coming from? The place that we know love, and we know that God identifies himself as love, the place that we identify in our bodies where love resides is what makes our words, our deeds, our intentions, our dreams really be on the same track of where God is.
I love that the fact that, that love is really at the heart of everything, right? It even around this campus, I use that word intentionally, that I love the students. I love the faculty. I love the staff, because I don't think we as a society, we're not comfortable with that word, right? Because the meaning has been so taken in so many ways that do not mean the wholesomeness of drawing that person as close as I can and caring for that person as much as I can. So I think what you're talking about in regards to this, how am I loving other people and how am I loving myself so that I can love other people, seems to be at this essence of how we create a more just and merciful world. What are your thoughts on
no
that?
question about it. And I think that, the very first day that I met you, I got all the background, and my position as bishop, I have the privilege of meeting people who are coming into special leadership in any Catholic institution. It was unlike any other, because it wasn't an interview; it was a conversation.
Right.
And within a minute, I knew that I was looking at a woman who was the real deal. It wasn't that you were coming to fulfill a position, although you were given a very important job. But you were bringing the total self of Kathy Humphrey into what you were going to do as president of this university. And it followed on what you were able to do in your previous careers, but always in education and always combining your heart with what it was you were doing, but for the benefit of your students and of the people that you worked with then and do now in a very collaborative way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you call together, I think on a quarterly basis, all the university presidents of Catholic institutions in our area. And we meet and we talk about various issues around our work, and as being Catholic institutions. Why did you start that?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I have to give credit to my predecessor, Cardinal World, because he really started that conversation back in the early 1990s, shortly after Pope John Paul II, issued his dream for all Catholic universities throughout the world. And when I became bishop, I said, I'm going to want to continue this. Mm-hmm. I did it when I was the bishop in Green Bay, and I did it for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I think there is this sad commentary in other parts of the country that say that there's going to be a tension between Catholic universities and the church, between leaders of a Catholic university and the bishop. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's so important about what we do is, we come together, talk about the dreams, of all three of the Catholic universities in Pittsburgh, Carlo, La Roche, Duquesne. Mm-hmm. But then we're able to talk about the issues that ground who we have to be. Mm-hmm. And I think in your opening statement, you talked about, the dream of Carlo to represent the mission that's been given to it by Jesus himself. And I think that it's important for us to always come together to see that what we're doing has to have as its focus the foundation of who Jesus is and who he calls us to be as his disciples.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's so you're so right. When I go to various meetings, and I will hear from time to time from other presidents, they're concerned about their bishop, and I am always so happy that I can say, oh no, I love my bishop.
Do they look at you funny? Do they?
They are puzzled from time to time, but I do believe that because we have this open relationship, that we know we can come to you, talk to you if we have an issue or a concern, and that we are working together really ultimately for the same purpose. And so I think I'm very appreciative of those meetings, because we do get an opportunity to talk from campus to campus. First of all, we become closer in relationship with each other as Catholic institutions, which affords us another opportunity to share. But I think more importantly, we are a part of the body, and the body needs to be with each other and connect to each other. And so that's a wonderful opportunity that I think we have because of that. And I also believe it's why the relationship is good, is because even if I have something hard to say to you, I know at the bottom of it is goodness, right? And that it's going to all come out like it should, because we are really all working towards the same goal.
As I think about it, isn't that what happened back in the 1840s? When the man who became the first bishop of Pittsburgh, Michael O'Connor, had conversations with the Sisters of Mercy. And while Catherine Macaulay had died, I think in 1880 or 1881, he searched out the Mercy Sisters in Ireland.
Yes.
And said, I need you to come here to help me in the building up of this brand new church of Pittsburgh. The diocese was established in August of 1843, and thank God that in December of that same year, Mother Frances Ward came with a group of sisters, and he chose them to work with him to build the church of Pittsburgh. And here we are, 181 years later, and the relationship still continues to exist. And look what's happened over the course of those years.
Yes.
What happens when we get together for academic council with the presidents of all the Catholic universities really began in this diocese.
Yes.
With that kind of conversation with the Sisters of Mercy.
That's true. And while I know that story very well, I've never thought until this very moment, Carlo is where it all began for the Catholic Diocese in Pittsburgh. So thank you, Bishop, for giving me that little further insight into who we are in this city. So Bishop Zubik, the church, can you talk to us a little bit about how are you using your leadership role to caused the church to create this more just and merciful world?
Yeah, so what Jesus gave as an example, and he called forth from his disciples then and all of us now, is that what we believe to be true about him has to take action in our words and deeds. When I made reference to the Sisters of Mercy coming to Pittsburgh in the 1843, that's why the bishop invited them to come, to make sure the gospel would be real. There were lots and lots of people who were poor. That's why Mercy Hospital was established. That's why so many schools were open. And that's why Carlow University began in the 1920s. So it was a matter of making very clear and powerful the mission of Jesus to this present age. And I applaud Carlo for all the efforts that you're making to make sure that we're creating a just and a merciful world, but always within the view that we're doing this not just as good human beings, not just for humanitarian purposes, but because we are truly believe in who we are as disciples of the Lord. That's why every academic year we come together to celebrate the Mass of the Spirit, to say, hey, this education that you're receiving isn't just about you as students or the work that's our job as faculty, but it's our common effort to help the world become a better place. And that's our mission, to take a look at creating a world that is more just and a society that is more merciful.
What's your hope and dreams for every Catholic institution? What do you want to, would you look back and say, I would really be proud if every Catholic institution was able to accomplish what?
To open the eyes of whoever belongs to that institution to say, life is not about me. It's about what I can do in the name of Jesus to help the world become a better place. And so whether that's something that you do here and do well at Carlow University or any of the schools or the staff that perhaps work in hospitals, it's a matter to say what we do is not a job. It's not a matter of putting in time. It's a matter of digging down deep into our hearts and using the energy that's there to help other people ultimately get to heaven. And lots of times that's going to mean getting down and dirty with people suffering, or helping people open their eyes to see, there are a lot of folks that don't have the blessings that we have. And I know that that's the goal of what happens here at Carlow, to say there are a lot of people out there who need to come to know Jesus. And one of the most powerful ways they're going to get to know him is the service that you can offer him in so many of the fields that the students of Carlow are growing in.
And we're in a world now where it's so directed at individuals, right? You've got your TikTok, you've got all your social media apparatuses, and they're all focused on that individual. How many likes do you have? How many friends do you have, right? And so we've kind of created a world where we have encouraged people to look inward as opposed to thinking what they can do outward. And do you think that is some of the concerns that we are now created as a world, right? We've got AI that is disconnecting us a little bit further from our humanity in a bit. I'm supportive of AI. I don't want to sound that way, but it is another mechanism that takes us a little bit further away from this humanity, this I am here for others. How do you in your work, how do you get people to understand that concept in a meaningful way that they'll grab a hold of it, right? That look, it's bigger than you.
Yeah, I try to do that by way of my preaching, by my teaching. And I hope by the way that I live my life as a leader. One of the things that I think about often that came from the lips of the late Pope Benedict XVI was, he said, the cancer of the day is relativism. And relative means I have my truth, and my truth will guard my life, and I don't care whether or not you agree with my truth or not, mine is mine. And so what we're dealing with there is kind of an enclosed world that shields itself from taking a look at other people and how important they are. And it's important that we take a look that there is a basic truth that guides us as disciples of the Lord. And that's the truth that calls us to be disciples in action. And that has to be a principal part of working together to help create a better world, one that is just and one that is merciful.
Right. And I do think, what you've brought up in regards to how am I living my own life? And what's my own life signaling out to others about who they are and what they can be and how important they are and what their value is as a human. How am I connecting? And it's something, everybody can't preach, right? But everybody is living a life that can potentially draw others to this notion of being something greater in someone else's life. And how do I demonstrate that on a daily basis, I think is something that we can all reflect on every day. I know this morning I was looking at the scripture that talked about the gifts of the Spirit and being love and patience, self-control. I didn't like that. I don't like to deal with the self-control piece, but it must be done. Must be dealt with in order for me to really respect other people, right? Because that gift of self-control is what allows me to hear the other perspective, even when I don't want to hear it.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on one point that you made. Okay.
Great.
We're always called to preach, all of us. The great popular Saint Francis of Assisi said, always preach the gospel and sometimes use words.
Oh, that's
and
good.
the fact is, it's the testimony of what our lives are like.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the first step that we have to take is, first of all, take a look at ourselves through the eyes of God.
Mm-hmm.
He created us in his image and likeness, and we've got to be able to see what he created us to be. Mm-hmm. Second of all, we've got to take a look at, how do I use my personality, my talents, for the benefit of other people. And third of all, we've got to recognize that no one of us is perfect.
That's right.
And no one of us can live as an island. No one of us can live alone. And we do need to have other people. And I think that the vast communications efforts that we've seen happen over the course of the last couple of decades, which were meant to help connect us better with others, we're using to separate from each other. And I think that's one of the challenges that I think you and all universities face, about opening up the vista of where students are called to live their talents, first of all, by recognizing them, by using them, and then recognizing that they got to have other people helping them to do that as well too.
So Bishop, it's interesting from time to time to hear the perception of what is a Catholic university, right? What's a Catholic education? And I always talk about the fact that we are accepting of all because we are Catholic, right? So if you were going to talk to a group of parents about a Catholic education, what would you say to them, whether their students were Catholic or not? What would you tell them about what they could expect from a Catholic education?
I think the first thing that's important is to be proud of the foundation of what makes the Catholic University what it is. Mm-hmm. And that while this institution stands to help prepare people for their life's journey, and particularly around their professions, the perspective from which that vision will be broadened has to be within the foundation of who Jesus is. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of apologizing to say that I'm a Catholic university, but I'm proud of what that means. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that you know that is in fact going to be the mission and the message and the direction of the university. And so if that's what you want for your child, if that's what you want as a particular student, then we're here to help you with it. But it's important that whether you're Catholic or not, you come to know the environment of what it is, and hopefully everybody who's here, whether they're Catholic or not, will walk away from this institution, Carlow University, for example, having a deeper appreciation of themselves as created by God and using their talents to the best they can to help other people.
So I couldn't agree more with everything, Bishop, that you've said. The addition is we talk about also our foundation being our faith, our value system, right? It's what makes us different as well. And I think you've clearly spoke about that. But talk a little bit about our commitment to ethics.
So one of the things that I've shared already in our conversation today is how we got to make sure that what's in our hearts becomes a reality in how we live our lives. And I think the foundation of what we all try to teach our students is based on what Jesus calls forth in the gospel.
Yes.
And what he says is not a request, it's a demand. You know, when we go back to the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, and Jesus speaks his inaugural address known as the Beatitudes, he wasn't just sharing that for the sake of inspiring people to say, well, wasn't that a nice talk? But he's saying, this was my inaugural address beginning my ministry, but this is in fact the action plan that you as my disciples are going to have to follow. And there's no one of those 8 Beatitudes or anything that Jesus calls forth from us that's easy, because lots of it fights against our own tendency to look within or to be selfish. And he's given us the really law of love. That's exactly what it is, exemplified in his own life. And I think that has to really pervade everything that we do in terms of our thought process and our lived experience, that we see that our actions matter a lot, but our actions have to be courageous, they have to be gospel-centered, they have to be other-oriented, and directed to the whole purpose of why students come to a Catholic university, helping them to get ready to serve others, but help so that we can all help each other to get to heaven.
Right, absolutely. Well, Bishop Zubik, as always, I have loved my time with you. I am always enlightened when we have our conversations as well. And I have to remind myself, we are all preachers. And so I thank you for that reminder, because our lives are constantly preaching, and by what we do and what we say. And so I think the entire conversation has been good for not only me, but hopefully for those who are listening, to just remember that we can take a lot of pressure off of ourselves just simply by realizing that we're not just here for ourselves, but we are here to connect with the humanity, to connect with our fellow brothers and sisters, and to do what the Sisters of Mercy came from Ireland to do, and that is to meet the next great need.
Amen.
So thank you, Bishop Zubik.
You're welcome. Thanks for the honor to be here with you. Thanks.
Absolutely.